Welcome back, everyone. The video you're about to watch is part of a live stream series that I do on Twitch where I teach people how to build an Android app from start to finish by building a task management application. I've removed the episode numbers from the videos because it's designed that each one can be consumed individually. Each week, I pick a particular topic or feature and focus on just that for the live stream. If you are interested in watching the full playlist, check out the links in the description below. But if you just found this one and it intrigues you, I hope you enjoy it and let me know what you think. Let's talk about composed testing again. I've been slipping this into a few streams. And I think it would be cool to do some tests around our new button clicks here. So I guess, do we want to? So there's hmm. So there's kind of two ways we can look at like testing for this, right? Like there's full end-to-end integration tests that are like verifying that I can click through this and see different tasks based on it. And then there's more like pure UI testing, like if I click on this button, does the right thing call back? And like, do we want to automate that test? Like sometimes it feels like overkill, but it's actually like a good thing to have to automate like that I click buttons properly. Um, so I was thinking about writing a few short tests to do that, and talk about like how I would do that. So you know what, why not? This is time for us to look at something. So let's start by writing the test, and let me show you how I would do this. So we're going to call this task list content test. We're going to put it in the Android test package. Um, and let's do this. So let's create a test. And let's call this one click previous date button. So the one thing we need is our JUnit test rule for a composed test rule, which allows us to, this basically creates like a component activity that we can throw stuff on the screen and start writing tests for it. So to do that, right, we can do compose test rule set content, and then we tell it what to put in here. So here we would put like task list content, and we would give it some stuff. So the view state, I'm just going to give it the default view state. And then for like on rescheduled clicks, we can ignore that. On done clicked, we could ignore that. On add button clicked, again, we could ignore that. Or we could, no, we're not going to test them in here. But here, on previous date button clicked, we're going to put something here in a moment. But on next date button clicked, we could ignore that for now. So here's how we would tell Compose to render this screen. But now, well, what do we need? Well, we need one way to check, like, has the user actually clicked this button? And what I mean is like, so when the user clicks this button, we know there's a callback through all these lambdas that get passed around in our composable, and I want to make sure like those composables are set up correctly. That when I click this specific button, this particular callback gets called. So why do I think I kind of want to take a step back on like why I think this test is a good one for us to write. Um, Let me give you an example of one that might not be. So we have this primary button composable in our app, right? That is like just a custom button. Now I could write a test that says, render this button and click it and make sure that this lambda is called. And that sounds like a good thing, and it could be, but like this test is so small. All that's in here is a button. But what I'm considering with like task list content is we have all these click listeners that are the same signature applied to different buttons. I want to test that those lambdas get associated with the correct button. So that's why a test like this could be helpful. If I accidentally applied the previous state button click listener to the next state button, um, I would want to know that. I would want to catch that in my test, right? So that's why I think a test like this could be helpful. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to keep like a private variable called like has clicked previous state. This will be a Boolean, or we'll just say this is false. And so in our lambda, we can say has clicked previous state equals true. So now we need to actually interact with the screen. And there's a couple ways we can do this. So we have an icon button for this, which means it's going to have a content description. So one way we could do this is we could do compose test rule dot on node with content description, and we can give it like what our content description is going to be, which I don't think our icon button actually has one yet. So let's call it, you know, view previous date, uh, view previous dates test. And then we could say perform click. And we would expect that after this, we could say assert that has clicked previous date that is true. Oh, I don't have truth inside the Android test package. Let's fix that. We're going to go into our apps build.gradle. We're going to find the truth library, and we're just going to copy this and also make it have the Android test implementation. And we'll do a Gradle sync, and then we should be able to include it here. Nice. So that's previous state. Um, I could also, yeah, I'm going to call it previous states and not yesterday's because, yeah, I guess that's what we can call the content description. Maybe that's not the most helpful for screen readers. I'll have to spend some time thinking about that. Um, if anyone has ideas on like a good content description for like these previous date and next date buttons, let me know. But they can be changed at any time. So here we're going to call this one has clicked next date. We're going to change this lambda to instead be on the other button. Um, yeah, okay, we could just call it view previous day and view next day. Um, so here we say on node with content description, view next day, perform click. So we kind of did a TDD approach here, even though the code was already written, because I can tell you that these content descriptions don't exist. So if I were to run this, when the emulator runs its test, that's a great question. So I should put the content description in the resource file. But here's something that's actually kind of interesting. I'll do that in the second tracks, and I'll show you why sometimes I have issues with that. Um, okay, so this failed because it expected a node but couldn't find any. So how do we fix that? Well, let's go into the task list content. Um, and I think I put like to-do comments in here. Yeah, so this is left, so we're going to call this view previous day. I can pull this out into a string resource right here. View previous day content description. That's a good thing to have. We'll also do view next day and do expect string resource view next day content description. Now let's run those tests again and let's make sure they pass. And So this is good that they're string resources. What's interesting is I don't know, and I could be wrong, but okay, sorry, I just want to make sure these pass. Um, nice, they're running. Okay, cool, they pass. So getting the string resource from inside a composed test like this, um, isn't easy. So, like in compose, the way you do like string resource, uh, if I did this, um, yeah, previous day, or what is it? View previous day, count that description. Um, the way that we're used to writing this, oh my God, um, this doesn't work because this can only be called inside of a composable function. So this will be interesting. So some hacks, not hacks, some solutions to problems like this is people get a reference to like the actual instrumentation, right? Which is something we could do. But actually, let me show you um, so you might find this fascinating. Let me show you what create compose rule actually does. So this calls a function called create Android compose rule with a component activity. So let's copy that code and let's talk about what the difference is. Actually, it might not be obvious, but these have slightly different return types. Okay, so let me show. Getting ahead of me, but let me show you. So the short answer to that is no. Compose test rule does not have any reference to context. Not when you write it like this. And that's because it's just this is meant to be like a helper function to just create like an empty compose rule for a component activity that can render anything. But if we do create Android compose rule, this has a different type of that includes a activity scenario rule or something like that. Like the other example just gives me a compose content test rule, but this one actually has an activity reference. So you could do this with a default component activity, and then all of a sudden, yes, you can do compose test rule dot activity, and then you could do like get string, r dot string dot view previous day, blah blah blah. So we could say, previous button content description equals this. And then we can do compose test rule on node with content description, previous button content description, perform click. So this is how you would do it. Now this just for clarity too. So component activity is just a base class to render nothing. But if you want to test like your app in like an end-to-end way with like the actual activities and view models, you could put like your main activity in here. Wait, why is this yelling at me? Oh, interesting. Oh, because my main activity has an experimental annotation, so it's yelling at me. But you could put whatever activity you want in here. But I would just use component activity, and then I would get like the access to the actual activity from here. Hopefully they fix it or expose the context with some function. It's possible. Um, I don't know. I guess it's debatable, right? Like, if they give me an option, if there's a function that allows me to reference the activity, then great. But if I was testing that I can just render stuff and I don't care about the context, then it's fine. Um, that's kind of my thought here. But so let's do the same thing here, but again, view next day, um, next button content. Yeah, you're right. Um, I mean that's the age-old Android problem of everything being tied to a context. But yeah, that's fair. Um, yeah, let's look at yeah. So compose content test rule. Let's see if the docs explain anything about this. Um, so it's meant to be the simplified version, right? A compose test rule allows you to set the content without the necessity to provide a host for the content. The host, such as an activity, will be created by the test rule. An instance of compose content test rule can be created with create compose rule. If you need to specify which particular activity is started on Android, you can use create Android compose rule. Um, Interesting. But so you're right. I can see the benefit of this. Um, I can see the benefit of this, but it's definitely fair that like um you would want to pull the context from it. But I'm actually looking down here at this code, this create compose rule being like an expect function, and it makes me wonder if they wanted the core test rules to be platform agnostic. Um, no, it's not the only API to use, and that's why I was able to just take this and make it work. Um, so my guess is that the create compose test rule wrapper, this one that we called originally, my guess is that this was meant to be platform agnostic. And that is why this interface does not give you any context information. Because context is not a thing on other platforms. But a composed test rule might still be a thing on other platforms. So yeah, that's why you have this solution of creating an Android compose rule. Yeah, I never even thought about the platform agnostic thing before, but that's actually really good that we did. Because hint, hint, your favorite Android content creator is thinking about and has been brainstorming uh, compose testing resources, and I've been putting a lot of thought into like compose testing setup, and so this is actually really good notes for me. Um, yeah. Okay, so those tests are passing. Um, I'm not really testing like that the title is rendered a certain way. I could. Um, That's fine. I just wanted to make sure those lambdas were passing. So let's commit that code real quick. Um, Oops. And so we could say um, testing, previous, and next button. Click listeners. This is good. And I think after I get this pull request going, I will wrap up. Um, Testing. Uh, So I just want to get the pull request running on GitHub, and then we can wrap up from there. But thank you all for joining me tonight. Tonight was super interesting. Um, Most of that video is going to be a really long YouTube video, but then there'll be a nice little short. Uh, I can make a little short 15-minute YouTube video on like testing button clicks. Uh, or maybe I'll just make this one really long video after all. Who knows? Um, I try to split it up when I can. So, those UI testing for button clicks. Okay, so labels. Did I ever make? Yes, nice. Testing. Um, your list of things to hold me accountable for? Oh no, which thing? I mean, I'll put this on YouTube. It's just whether I split it up into two videos to be determined. Um, okay. Nice. So those are running. I will make sure that the stream history files are updated soon, and y'all should see this on YouTube soon as well. Um, I have a yeah. I've been very careful about what I'm working on with respect to compose testing because if I put too much out in the open, then I will never get it done. Um, but I have ideas in the works. Let's switch back over to my webcam. Let's get ready to wrap up. We'll find someone to raid in a moment. But yeah, thank you all for joining. Hope you learned something. Tonight was super interesting to work on the date navigation. The app is every stream takes leaps towards being more functional and fun.